Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is Good Tuesday News Day here as we are covering all the good news stories, the ones that make you feel positive inside about what's happening out there in the world, that it's not so bad. This is Before Coffee, the father and daughter comprehensive news of Planet Earth podcast, where we look up our news stories 10 to 15 minutes before we started, and we haven't had any caffeine. So, get up a cup, drink it up, and listen to all the good news for today's show. Today on Before Coffee, sea turtles swarm the beaches in India for annual mass nesting. And did you know mice have empathy for each other?
This is Roger from the United States with more good news on Good Tuesday News Day. We have a rare intelligent species of crow is taking flight in Hawaii again.
A donated placenta saves acid attack victim's eye.
The gray slums of Brazil are turning green again, and a woman is hit by a motorist and then marries him.
Martin Scorsese and Steven Spielberg appeal to Giorgio Meloni to save Rome's cinema.
And it is National Clam Chowder Day, so get out your bowl of clams and bon appetit. It is February 25th in 2025 on Before Coffee.
Clam chowder is one of my favorite chowders, though. What other chowders are there? Corn chowder? There are people who like corn chowder. A lot of people, actually. I love corn chowder. Let's go to the segue wheel so we can roll our segues. Roll, roll, roll our segues. Here we go. All right, we're starting to get fun with a limerick. So.
All right, we'll get the pencil.
Don't forget to get the pencil out. Okay. For my first stories, we're going to talk about animals. The first one about sea turtle. I keep on saying turtles. Sea turtles.
Turtle?
Yeah, I don't. My mouth keeps saying turtles, even though my brain is saying turtles. Sea turtles are swarming the beaches in India for their annual mass nesting. This is on Good News Network. Thousands of sea turtles have taken over a beach as part of an annual mass nesting of olive ridley turtles in India. The incredible video shows a seemingly endless stretch in Odisha, with waves of turtles slogging ashore near the mouth of the Rushikuya River. According to the division. Sorry?
So that's really hard to rhyme, man.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Odisha. According to Divisional Forest Officer Sunny Kokar, over 11,000 turtles laid their eggs on February 16th across the 2.5-mile stretch of land, or 4 kilometers stretch. It was the first day of the Audabada, the unique nesting ritual where thousands of females come together on the same beach to lay eggs. Interestingly, they return to the same beach where they first hatched as a baby. During the phenomenal nesting, up to, here we go, 600,000 females emerge from the water during the 5 to 7 day period. Imagine that, seeing 500,000 more sea turtles just on the beach. When they said swarm, they meant swarm. The 2-foot-long turtle then digs pits in the sand to lay between 100 to 150 eggs before covering them and returning them to sea. After 45 to 65 days, the eggs begin to hatch, and these beaches are swamped with tiny olive ridley turtles, making their first trek towards the vast ocean. It is estimated that approximately 1 hatchling survives adulthood every 1,000 hatchlings that enter the sea waters. The plentiful species is categorized as vulnerable by international wildlife groups, probably due to human mingling more than anything else. So to safeguard the nesting process, the forest departments have implemented protective measures. Local volunteers helped to create a secure environment, and the beach has been fenced off to prevent visitors from disturbing the nest, and the restrictions are set to remain in place until the hatchlings have emerged. Of course, in some countries, it's actually illegal to even touch a sea turtle. If you're found even if you're diving, right? If you're found petting one or touching one, you can get fined. So, yeah. It's good to see the annual mass nesting going on with, I guess, no problems so far. In some more animal news, let's talk about giving first aid, but as a mouse. This is also on Good News Network by Andy Corbley. When presented with an unresponsive acquaintance, a mouse may attempt to revive them by pawing and gently biting at their face, scientists recently reported. A third behavior was also seen, however, that involved the attendant mouse removing the unconscious peer's tongue in a manner nearly identical to clearing the airways, the first step in a human CPR. Together, the demonstration shows how mice and other animals may be far better caregivers than previously thought. I mean, there's so many animals that bury their dead, and we're supposed to be surprised that they know that you're dying. Li Zhang of the University of Southern California introduced caged mice to Conrad, who had been anesthetized, and watched as the mouse spent nearly half of a 13-minute observation window attending to the sedated individual. They start with sniffing, then grooming, and then they're very intensive on physical interaction, says Zhang. They really open the mouth of this animal and pull out its tongue. The grooming interactions often involve licking the mouse's eyes. In the case of tongue removal maneuver, this was observed in more than 50% of all the trials run by Zhang. Once the behavior had been established, Zhang and his team inserted non-toxic plastic balls in the mouth of the mice after sedation, and watched how in 80% of the encounters the attendant mouse removed the ball. Oh, you're choking! Let me get that out for you. You're welcome, buddy. Behavior changes also were observed. Caregiving or attending behavior stopped once the sedated mouse became responsive again, whilst the sedated mouse began moving faster, quicker than a mouse that awoke without an attendant. So they came out of their stupor faster. Mice spent more time attending to mice they knew better. I've never observed these types of behaviors when we run experiments in the lab, Cristina Marques of the Center of Neuroscience and Cell Biology in Coimbra, Portugal, told New Scientist, who also commented on how Zhang's findings were replicated in 2 other studies recently. The fact that the 3 independent laboratories have observed similar behaviors indicates that this is a robust finding. However, we should be careful about anthropomorphizing too much what we observe in non-human species, or attributing intentions that go beyond what is observed. I don't know if they were doing that. I didn't read the whole study, but maybe they were doing that in the study. Maybe that's just a warning. Maybe nobody has done that yet, but don't do it. Zhang compared the behavior to using smelling salts or a slap to wake someone up, though I don't think a slap wakes anyone up. I think most doctors advise do not slap someone to wake them up. Causing head trauma will not wake you up. And clearing the airways is one of the most basic steps after arriving at an unconscious person. Neuronal activity during the behavior shows that it was driven by the release of oxytocin in the regions of the brain called the amygdala and the thalamus. Oxytocin is important signaling hormone related to caring, love, and empathy. Research makes one harken back to Pullman's poet's immortal words. Oh, here we go. I got a poem to compete against your limerick here. I'm truly sorry man's dominion has broken nature's social union, and justified that ill opinion that makes you startle at me, thy poor earth-born companion, a fellow mortal. And that's from Robert Burns to a mouse on turning up her nest with a plow. So, I love that there's a poem about that. Whoops, I destroyed your nest with my plow. And killed you all. There you go. There's your an extra poem here. I did not expect that at the end of the story about some mice and some turtles.
Okay, here's my attempt at limerick. Okay. Turtles down India way swim to mate on a winter's day, and mice will give aid to mice unconsciously laid. More animal behavior on display. Anyway.
They're just like us.
They're just getting through life. All right, next story, I guess.
All right, I have to be reminded of a song.
Reminded of a song. This is about crows. So there's plenty of songs about crows or bands named after crows.
Yeah, but I have to be reminded of the song.
NPR.org. NPR.org. This rare by Lauren Summer. This rare intelligent species of crow is taking flight in Hawaii again. So let's get on with it. For the first time in years, a rare bird is flying free in the forests of Hawaii. The Alala, A-L-A-L-A, with a little thing over the last A. I don't know what a thing is. Is a species of crow found only on the Hawaiian Islands, one that holds an important place in native Hawaiian culture. When it was clear decades ago that the chatty, intelligent birds were heading toward extinction, they were brought into captivity as a last resort. They went extinct in the wild in 2002. The species was held on thanks to a breed. The species is held on, thanks to a breeding program, but returning them to the wild has been challenging. A group released on Hawaii's Big Island was preyed upon by hawks. In captivity, the crows have become accustomed to human care, making it harder for them to survive in the wild.
Yeah, that's the one.
Now five young alala have been released in the remote forest of Maui in an environment free of hawks. A team of biologists and wildlife officials is monitoring them with the hope that this time the crows endure and thrive. And then here comes a fleet of hawks to come in.
Hey, the food moved over here.
Yeah, there. Hey guys, I found some crow. With more endangered species than any other state, Hawaii's plants and animals are increasingly being brought into captivity to stave off extinction. From tiny forest snails to rare honey creepers. But often there is no clear path to living in the wild again because the threats from habitat loss, disease, and invasive species remain. The hope is now that the reintroduction of the alala proves to be an exception. I know I'm saying that wrong. Alale? I think it's alale. Maybe that's how it's pronounced. We need a conservation win in Hawaii. We really do, says Hannah Mounts, manager for the Maui Forest Bird Recovery Project, which helped release the birds. The fact that this release has actually happened and that these birds, at least for now, are doing extremely well is so exciting. Until now, the only place to find Hawaiian crows has been a cluster of buildings at the Maui Bird Conservation Center, run by the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance, along with a sister site on another island. It is home to a number of species that are extinct in the wild or whose numbers are rapidly dwindling. They have quite an extensive language, says Jennifer Pribble, a senior research coordinator at the center. She walks up to the alale enclosures. The crows' loud calls echo between the buildings in a squawky call and response. Much like Hawaii's wildlife, Hawaiian crows began to dwindle after the arrival of Western settlers. Their native forest habitat was converted to agriculture and grazing. Mosquitoes brought in by ships carried avian malaria. Introduced species like rats and mongoose preyed on the native birds and their eggs. It's why dozens of Hawaii's birds have gone extinct. To avoid this fate, many remaining species have been brought into captivity, living in what are essentially isolated savings banks of biodiversity. Their facilities for insects, Pribble says, their facilities for plants, everything that is native to Hawaii is threatened. Hawaiian crows were brought into captivity beginning in the 1970s. Over time, the population has grown to more than 100. We built the breeding program up from about 8 founders, Pribble says. So all the alale that exist in the world have 8 great-great-great-great-grandparents, basically. Releasing them back into the wild has hit some speed bumps. The crows are traditionally found in Hawaii's Big Island, where wildlife officials tried to release them in 2016. Their native predatory hawk known as the Io lives there as well, so the birds received some predator training to prepare them. Still, the crows' numbers fell and the remaining birds were recaptured. Now the birds are being released in Maui, where no hawks are found. Pribble said they're starting with younger crows that are about a year old, which are more adaptable. Facing habitat loss and disease, that's a picture. They haven't learned lots of bad behavior, she said. They're inquisitive. They're still learning things. Talking about the young crows. On the other day of their release, the crows received the traditional Hawaiian cultural send-off before beginning the journey to their new forest home by helicopter. We need them to be around to thrive, says Kapono I Malatau of Nona Kuluki Opilani, a culture group. A cultural group. That's the name of a culture group. Hard to say. Talking about the release. If they thrive, we thrive. In the forest, the birds have a netted enclosure they can retreat to if needed, and over time they have ventured farther and farther into the forest. Alale are known for being intelligent and chatty, something in common to crow species. Anyway, it's like teenage gang, and it's really funny to see how they interact with each other, says Mounts. They help each other and they hand each other food. Still becoming wild again will be processed for the birds. They're still being carefully monitored and are receiving supplemental food from a field team of biologists. While the caretakers in captivity tried to minimize human contact, the crows aren't used to foraging for food on their own yet. Mount says the challenge is there's no playbook for returning animals to the wild after generations of captivity. Her team is figuring out what the crows need as they go. For some other species in captivity, there is still no way to release them because the threats from diseases like avian malaria are still too great. She says that's why every small step forward is important for conservation in Hawaii. It's extremely hopeful, Mount says. I don't want to say they're wild now and everything is done, but just the fact that we have gotten to this point is extremely promising and a big success. The crows in Hawaii. Time for a segue.
Nothing about this reminds me of a song. I don't have a song for you. The only thing I can think of that even reminds me of anything, right? Specifically reminds me, is the Counting Crows, but I don't even know any of their songs. I just know the band. I think it's a band. I don't even know.
Mr. Jones and me.
Yeah. Like, reminds you of a song. It doesn't remind me of anything. That's how it works. It doesn't remind me of any song. I'm not reminded of a song.
Nothing by the Black Crows?
No, don't even know who that is.
Hard to handle? You know their songs. You know exactly who the Black Crows are.
I don't know who they are. You have another limerick.
Used to sing their songs when you were a kid. Twice as hard, used to sing. I got another limerick. Okay. Well.
All right, let's talk about acid attacks. And by acid attacks, I mean saving your eye after an acid attack. This is Ella Pickover. From Ella Pickover, sorry. This is from Ella Pickover on The Independent. The victim of an acid attack has said he is so thankful after a pioneering treatment used a donated placenta that saved his eye. Paul Lasky, a plumber and heating engineer from Newcastle, suffered a severe chemical burn to his left eye in February 2023. Mr. Lasky's son was robbed at knife point when Mr. Lasky tried to intervene. He was squirted in the face with a substance that was believed to be battery acid. What the hell?
Wow, where did this happen?
I don't know. It doesn't. Newcastle, I guess.
Oh. Okay.
So the UK somewhere. Otherwise, you've probably just gotten shot. Time to make batteries illegal. The corrosive substance effectively melted both the inner and outer layers of his cornea, leaving his eye unable to repair itself. The damage was so extensive that the nerves in his eye began to malfunction. Oh, that must have been so painful, right? The nerves in your eye are telling you you're seeing bright lights, or it's dark, or you're dizzy, or whatever. And you're the whole time your brain is reading like a broken input. Ugh. The 43-year-old was rushed to Newcastle Royal Victoria Infirmary, where he underwent a series of intensive procedures over 8 months. This included 2 emergency corneal transplants and 3 amnion grafts, a groundbreaking technique which uses membranes derived from donated placentas. That's so interesting, because they must have had to found like placentas for his blood type and stuff, because if you don't know anything about when you get transplants, your body will know it's a foreign object. It'll be like, that does not belong to me. I didn't make that. And it will attack it. So they had to find the perfect donors for placentas. The amnion grafts played a crucial role in Mr. Lasky's recovery, promoting healing and regeneration in his damaged eye. The NHS Blood and Transplants NHSBT Cord Blood Bank collected donated placentas at 2 hospitals, University College London and Luton, and Dunstable hospitals. Scientists at NHSBT's Tissue and Eye Services then used that to create a specialist tissue graft, which can be used to treat eye injuries. What it looks like, it just looks like a film, like a film made out of, it kind of looks mucousy almost, a mucousy film. That's what the graft is. They can stabilize the eye and avoid any further melting before any other sight-saving treatments are performed. Mr. Lasky, a father of 3, is now waiting for a stem cell transplant with hopes that some of his sight can be restored. I think we've talked about that before in a previous story last year. Somebody was able, the first eye transplant was successfully restored. He currently has no sight in his left eye, he said. I was told from day on that it wasn't about saving the sight, it was about saving the eye. And then we can work on that. Robbie Scott from Gateshead was jailed for a decade after the attack. Yeah, it's like, what are people thinking? I'm trying to rob someone at gunpoint. You don't actually hurt the person, because if you get caught, it's going to be worse. You know, robbing someone at knife point is a lesser crime than giving somebody batter acid in the eyeball. Mr. Lasky said his son, who had a gold chain stolen in the incident, is getting there. He probably blames himself. He probably has survival guilt or something. He says he has a lot of guilt, but it's not his fault. Mr. Lasky said that he had since returned to work, but struggles sometimes and occasionally burns himself because he does not have a full field of vision. Reminder, he's a plumber, so he kind of needs to be able to do plumbing. Professor Francisco Figueiredo, consultant and ophthalmologist at the Newcastle Eye Centre, who treats Mr. Lasky for his injuries, said, "Chemical eye burns are a true emergency. They can cause significant sight loss that will substantially impact the quality of the patient's life, and rapid treatment is crucial." In Paul's case, which is really quite severe, began by removing any residues of the chemical agent that may have still been in contact with the eye, before progressing to intensive, topical, systematic, and surgical treatment using amniotic membrane transplantation. Amnion grafts have been essential in helping the management of Paul's severe eye burn. They are thin, lightweight, elastic, and almost transparent, making them ideal for use on the surface of the eye to help to heal eye surface tissue damage while also providing anti-inflammatory benefits. These grafts have helped to save the vision Paul still has, and allowed us to move forward towards further treatment to restore his lost sight. Amnion is widely used for a variety of ocular surface problems, and it is incredible to think that this is possible due to the generosity of a mother donating the organ that she has grown to help her grow her child. It is really remarkable. NHSBT said that each donated placenta can be used to make around 50 to 100 amnion grafts. Wow! Of course, I hope we don't need that many. I'm hoping there's not people getting so much eye damage that we need like a huge amount of amnion grafts in store. Which can be used, they can also be used to treat burns and wounds. Okay, those are a little more common. I mean, speaking of which, I was moving my green screen and my plant pot was falling off the top shelf, so I grabbed it. The outside of my plant pot is very rigid, so I carved skin straight off my finger, so now I have like a big wound on my finger. Maybe I should get one of these amnion grafts to repair my missing skin. I'm so thankful to the mother who chose to donate her placenta to help people like me who are at risk of losing their sight completely. It's incredible to know that a new life can help so many people in such a profound way, using something that's usually thrown away. I thought you were supposed to eat it. I mean, I've never had a child, but I thought you were supposed to eat your placenta.
That's what all mammals do.
Yeah. Call me a naturalist.
A cow gets sick if she doesn't eat the placenta.
So much nutrients in that thing. Claire Price, National Retrieval
Manager
a lot of blood. At NHS Blood and Transplants, Tissues and Eye Services said, amnion grafts are very special things indeed. They play a crucial role in the treatment to save the vision of those who have suffered accidents or injuries, as well in some corneal transplants, which are life-changing for many. We make amnion grafts from amniotic membrane, the inner layer of the placenta, which some mothers choose to very kindly donate to other after birth. We're pleased to hear that the NHSBT amnion grafts have played such a crucial part in Paul's journey so far. We thank all the mothers who donate their placentas to make treatments like this possible. While we can currently collect all the placentas we need, Paul's story is a reminder of just how important donations of all types is, including blood, plasma, organs, and stem cells. Yeah, you can also get stem cells from that as well.
Right.
Hello, Tommy. Good morning. But there's the end of my story on using placentas to cure people's injuries like acid burns on your eye, which hopefully no one ever has to experience. And anyone who thinks of doing that, what is wrong with you? Just shame. Shame on every. Why would you throw acid at people's eyes?
To make the news, I don't know. People are morons.
No, he's just an idiot. I mean, he has a decade in prison now, so.
Okay. Reminds me of a limerick. Ready?
Yep.
A man from Newcastle town was a victim of crime by some clown. Placenta helped him to heal his face for real. Now his recovery truly astounds. Which
nice.
All right, next story. Next wheel.
Yeah, I'm out
spin.
here living in Wizard of Oz in Oz. All right, let's roll this wheel first, and then we can get to your story. All right, I hope I have a mixed metaphor for this one.
And that's two stories, so. This is from goodnewsnetwork.org, Andy Corbly. In fact, both stories are from Andy Corbly, so we'll give him credit right off. Gray slums of Brazil turn green with rooftop garden project in full bloom. That's right. You can grow a garden on your roof and not have to go shopping for all your vegetables. Okay, let's say his name is Luis Cassiano Silva, and he is the progenitor of the Tito Verde favela, our Green Roofs favela initiative, described by one academic as an exercise in insurgent citizenship. Rio's famous favelas are informal settlements neglected by the government that suffer from the urban heat island effect even more so than the city's metropolitan core. Winding alleys and corridors of exposed brick, metal, and concrete without a tree to be seen. The favelas absorb heat from the sun and radiate it out in neighborhoods rather than out into space like a forest. Taking responsibility for improving the lives of the community in 2014, Cassiano began teaching and planting, gardening, and growing all over Parque Arara, one of Rio's large favelas. Green roofs are used widely in Europe to climate-proof buildings. They not only lead to a reduction in the heat island effect, but also contribute to slowing rainwater runoff, keeping indoor areas cooler and keeping outdoor air cleaner and more moist. While the informality of favelas makes it all but impossible for centralized government to implement similar plans at scale, and while rows and rows of rooftop plants make it difficult to film the next Jason Bourne movie, spontaneous community-led planning and self-reliance can succeed in isolating and insulating low-income earners from climate change worse effects, and according to one academic, should not be interfered with. City officials are concerned with addressing UHI in order to keep privileged areas of the city welcoming to outsiders, since a big portion of Rio's economy is reliant on tourism, and tourist attractions are commonly found in the more privileged areas of the city, writes Matthias Cardoso at the University of Texas in a review article. The Green Roof Favela then challenges dominant approaches to planning by shedding light on the UHI effect in the marginalized peripheries of the city. Cassiano's work has attracted the attention of multiple international news outlets, including NPR, Sky, and others. Cassiano himself wrote that as much as the project aims to combat the urban heat island effect, his initiative mostly involves teaching people how to garden. Most children in the favela have no interaction with the forest and do not respect it. It is a culture of destruction. We must educate them slowly, Cassiano describes. In the favela, there are two colors, red and gray. There are no studies in color that say that red signifies passion, force, tension, explosion. But there's also gray, more melancholic, sad, and depressing. The favela is this, samba and love, but also sadness because it is poor. The color green will reduce violence. When we are close to green space, we feel good. Favelas need this. The next story from Good News Network, unless you have a mixed metaphor from this one.
No, I don't think so.
Not yet. So there's your greening of the poor places in Rio de Janeiro. Now we're gonna go to China. Pierced by Cupid's, the headline says, pierced by Cupid's sedan. That's funny. Woman forgives and marries motorist who accidentally ran her over. Can you remember the day, perhaps the moment you met the person who would become your significant other? Well, for an unnamed Chinese woman, it's a day extremely difficult to forget because she probably thought it would be her last. While crossing the street on an electric bicycle, the 23-year-old looked over and saw a car flying towards her at inevitable speeds. Inevitable speeds? Okay, that's an interesting sentence. The driver, reported with only the surname Lee, was driving fast through the streets of a city in Hunan province because of an emergency. At that moment, Cupid swapped his bow and arrow for Lee's car. The woman was hit and the impact broke her collarbone. Lee rushed over to her to apologize and call an ambulance, but received a surprising reply from the victim. "No worries," she said. No worries? Well, talk about easy going. Lee said she seemed to be a very kind person. The woman's parents absolved him of his guilt and opted not to press charges. South China Morning Post Fran Lu reports. Feeling the obligation, Lee visited her at the hospital every day to make sure she had everything she needed, during which time they grew close. 3 weeks after the collision, the woman confessed her love to the man who nearly killed her in a story that has lit up Chinese social media. At first, the 36-year-old Lee rejected her, saying he was too old. However, they remained in touch and eventually went out to see a movie together. She discovered she was pregnant in December and, bedecked in the reeds and golds of traditional Chinese raiment, were married in February. Lee said marriage was not in his life plan before he met her. He thanked his wife in social media posts for her bravery. Moving in with his wife's parents as they lived closer to the work, Lee reports that they refused the still-used bride price of Chinese custom, knowing their son-in-law to be in debt. Instead, they told him to invest in his business. Interestingly, striking his wife on the road was his sixth such incident in 2 months, but was also the last since that fateful day. So yeah, this guy's been hitting people with this car. This is an interesting way to select a wife, but he finally found one. I think
it was the dedication for him visiting her to make sure, taking responsibility. That's what's attractive in that story.
All right. Well, she forgave him right away.
Yeah.
She forgave him right away, really. It's like, wow, you crazy bat. United States should be a fist fight. Anyway.
Well, let's say she put all her eggs in one. She put all her eggs in one basket case, is what I would say.
Oh my! There you go. Like that. There's your mixed metaphor. All right, we're almost done now. Next story. Spin the wheel. Do we get another limerick?
Let's see. We've got a non sequitur. Okay.
All right.
For my culture segment, we're going to talk about saving Rome's cinemas. This is from David Marquand on Euronews Culture. Hollywood titans have appealed to the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni to block a new law that could turn Rome's oldest cinemas into shopping centers. Remember, guys, the death of culture in fascism is one of the risks, or one of the results, I guess, of fascism. As soon as they start taking away places for people to experienced humanity. You gotta watch out for that. New Italian law could convert up to 50 of Rome's oldest and closed cinemas into shopping centers, supermarkets, and hotels.
Jesus.
They could just invest all that money into the cinema instead of investing all the money into remaking them, you know? The hotels may be okay, but I don't know about supermarkets and shopping centers. Unless they're really like, oh, we're running out of places for people to shop. Famed Italian architect Renzo Piano, who designed the Pompidou Center in Paris and the Shard in London, stated that cinemas are the last lungs of oxygen for our city, which are increasingly saturated with cars, shopping malls, hotels, and vacation homes. The 87-year-old architect shared a letter to La Repubblica, whose appeal to save cinemas, some of which date back to the 1930s, has been endorsed by filmmakers including Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, Jane Campion, Spike Lee, and Francis Ford Coppola. They have appealed to the Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and Italian President Sergio Mattarella to block the plan that would represent a profound sacrilege. The attempt to repurpose space instead for a possible cultural renaissance of the internal city into hotels, shopping centers, and supermarkets is utterly unacceptable, reads an open letter co-signed by other filmmakers like David Cronenberg, Yorgos Lanthimos, Todd Haynes, Wes Anderson, and Ken Loach, as well as actors like Isabella Rossellini, Mark Ruffalo, and Léa Seydoux. Such a transformation would represent an irrevocable loss, a profound sacrilege not only to the city's rich history, but also the culture of legacy of our future generations. The letter adds, "It's our duty to transform these abandoned cathedrals in the desert, true temples of culture, places capable of nourishing the souls of both present and future generations." This reminds me of kind of this argument we're talking about when we were talking about Syria's kind of archaeological UNESCO heritage sites and stuff, right? This idea that people in the past did not take care of their own stuff, and so like a lot of culture was lost forever because I'll break it down and build another house on top of it that's more modern and that kind of idea. So I think a lot of people are really hooked on the idea of making sure to keep things from the past forever so that the culture of that era can be remembered, I guess. And I'm not for or against it. I just think it's an interesting point of view, right? We need to keep things that are old so that maybe in the future somebody can recognize how old it is and be like, wow, look how old this thing is.
Art Deco stuff was popular in the mid-century, and a lot of stuff just gets torn down.
Yeah, it will nourish the souls of both present and future generations, as I say. Over 500 filmmakers have signed an appeal in the Italian press, including Venice Film Festival director Alberto Barbera, who also joined by Italy's top football player Francesco Totti. The former AS Roma captain stated that the cinemas of our childhood cannot become more shopping malls, describing movie theaters as a place of memories, of magic, of daydreams. Well, I'm sure these ones are. There are some movie theaters I've seen in America. I'm like, this building is not historical at all. It's just like a normal, 2000s square building with some theaters in it. But there are some historical architectural buildings out there that have cinemas. Remembering moments as teenagers and kids spent at the cinema is a tradition and a value that we must pass on to a new generation, Totti said. We need places for sports, culture, kindergartens, and schools, not more shopping malls. The government of the Lazio region, which hosts the Italian capital, will vote next week on the fate of these treasured cultural institutions. Well, I don't know all of them. Are they all treasured cultural institutions? Or are some of them, like I said, just like a normal room with it's not, has no character, it's just a box? I'm not sure, but maybe that's also its own cultural experience too. The cinema in the alleyway in the back that you didn't even know was there. That's his own experience. But there's my short story on saving Rome cinemas and 500 people coming together to try to convince the Lazio region to not let these get turned into something less culturally appropriate, I guess. That's my story.
And that just goes to prove that old saying that I just made up. Italians love pie.
Pizza pie specifically, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, specifically pie. The pie. The pie. Pizza.
All right,
Anyway.
the last segue and our
Last
This
segue.
Day in History.
Yep.
All right, I have
What
to
do
be
we got?
reminded of a song again. I'm sure something in here will be about somebody who wrote songs.
Maybe
so
I'll
that will help.
sing. I'll just sing last This Day in History. That way you can't not remind you of a song. Anyway. In 1570, as Pope Pius V excommunicated Queen Elizabeth I of England from the Roman Catholic Church. There you go. There's your song. On this day, 1570, Queen Elizabeth I was excommunicated from the Roman Catholic Church, and she said, I don't care, I'm not Catholic anyway. Because Henry VIII was an Anglican. Her father or grandfather was Henry VIII. I think it was her father. Anyway. 1870, American clergyman, educator, and politician Hiram Rhodes Revels, which was one of our... We did a series about the first black congressman. Well, he was sworn in the U.S. Senate, becoming the first African-American to serve in the U.S. Congress in this day in 1870. We did a series on Black History Month a couple of years ago, where we named all of the first black U.S. representatives, Congress people. 1913, the 16th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which permitted a federal income tax, went into effect. 1917, English novelist and critic Anthony Burgess, whose fictional explorations of modern dilemmas combine wit, moral earnestness, and a note of bizarre, was born. So Anthony Burgess' birthday today. 1943, British musician George Harrison was born. We know who George is. He was one of the Beatles, the lead guitarist, and one of the most important and influential bands in the history of rock and roll. Happy birthday to George Harrison. Would have been only 82 today, so he died young. He died in 2002, quite a while ago. 1948, the communists seized control of the government of Czechoslovakia, which is no longer a country. In 1956, the 20th Congress of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union came to a close after First Secretary Nikita S. Khrushchev delivered a secret speech denouncing the late Soviet leader Joseph Stalin. We buried Stalin. In reality, now we're just going to bury him with words.
I wish they would just, I guess he couldn't have said it right out there, because he would have gotten killed.
Hey, the Politburo would have said, huh? What do we have? Dissent? You know what we do with dissent? We squash it. 1964, American boxer Muhammad Ali, known at the time as Cassius Clay, became the world heavyweight champion by knocking out Sonny Liston in 7 rounds. The big, powerful Sonny Liston. 1990, in Nicaragua, Violeta Barrios de Chamorro of the U.S. financed National Opposition Union achieved an upset victory over the incumbent president Daniel Ortega of the Sandinista Liberation Front. That was 1990 in Nicaragua. 2001, Australian cricketer Don Bradman died at the age of 92. One of the greatest run scorers in the history of the game and often judged the greatest player of the 20th century. And he got to be 92, so good for him. He spent 92 years playing cricket, and that was just one game. Anyway.
Easy joke. Easy joke.
1986, ousting of Marcos in the Philippines. On this day in 1986, Philippine President Ferdinand E. Marcos, under pressure from the United States, fled his country for Hawaii and then ate crow. Fled his country for Hawaii after eat crow and you're wrong. That's called eating crow. Fled his country for Hawaii after a fraudulent electoral victory over Corazon Aquino, who replaced him as president. Wow, Filipinos sniffed out their fraud and threw their president out of the country. Go. Crazy. Go, Philippines. Our feature biography, Pierre-Auguste Renoir's birthday, French painter. I think it's his birthday. Yes, he was born February 25th in 1841 in Limoges, France. And he died December 3rd, 1919 age 78 at Provence Alpes Côte d'Azur. I don't even know if I said that right, but close enough. Other birthdays today: Enrico Caruso, Italian opera singer. Born in 1873. We did Anthony Burgess. George Harrison, we did. Nestor Kirchner, president of Argentina, born in 1950. Chelsea Handler, American comedian author, born in 1975. She's turning 50 today. Happy birthday to Chelsea. Happy birthday, Chelsea. She's very funny. National Day Calendar. We're going to figure out what day it is. It's only two things. It's National Clam Chowder Day and National Chocolate Covered Nut Day. So those are your days. That's your news. That's your nonsense, or poems, or metaphors, and all that crazy crap for February 25th, 2025 on Before Chocolate Covered Nuts.
And don't forget to subscribe, turn on those notifications so you can, I forgot to transfer myself over. And turn those notifications so you can get reminded of when we go live for Whacking Weird Wednesday tomorrow. You know what? This Day in History reminded me of a song called First Time I Ever Saw Your Face from 1972, which is going to be our mic drop moment for today. You made it easy on me. Okay. So let's go over to that. Take care out there, everyone. And that's the end of the show. Mic drop moment time.
All right.
I just put the whole thing in, so.
Right. It's only 3 minutes or so.
Very well performed. Roberta Flack.
She won a Grammy for Song of the Year 2 years in a row.
Nice.
She won for this, and she won with Killing Me Softly, which next year. She didn't write either one of the songs, but she was this featured singer in them.
Now, this song was written by Elwyn McCall for Peggy Seeger, but who later became his wife. That's what it says in the description of the video, anyways.
I'm not gonna lie about a thing like that.
Yeah.
Not on the internet.
It's a 1957 folk song that later was recorded by Roberta Flack in 1972. So, I guess technically it's a cover. So it was probably the original song
really
probably
big.
sounds way different because it's a folk song. So
Yeah, right.
this is more of like a ballad, piano ballad.
Yeah. The original was played on pan flute. No, just kidding.
I'm not sure about that.
Well, it's a folk instrument. We got the internet. We can look up the original.
Delivery is what matters here, more than anything. A woman and her piano, and I guess the trumpets.
In 72, people took time to listen to music, so a slow song like this would find an audience.
Yeah, it's all about the vibe, you know? The immaculate aura of loving somebody, really. Intense love. Speaking of empathy.
Yeah, like as if somebody hit you with a car. They love you so much.
The first time I ever heard this song when I was 9, I did not know who this lady, Roberta Flack, was, or why she was so in love with my face, but I was mesmerized. It was the first time a song made me want to learn more about girls. That's from the comments on the YouTube video.
Right on. Rest in peace,
Pretty
Roberta.
powerful. Most people don't have their sexual awakening from a song. They usually have it from seeing somebody, you know?
Mm-hmm. Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.